Your grandmother kept some of these remedies on her kitchen shelf in a glass jar or a small brown bottle with a handwritten label. Your great-grandmother used them every season of her life without a second thought, and so did every woman in her village before her. Today, the Food and Drug Administration of the United States has banned, restricted, or issued a formal warning against every single one of them. 25 remedies that worked for generations of American households from the colonial period all the way through the end of the Second World War. Silenced, warned against, or regulated out of public memory in a single generation of federal oversight and corporate lobbying. The reason has less to do with your personal safety than you might believe when you first hear this argument laid out plainly. When a remedy cannot be patented by a corporation, it cannot generate reliable profit for any shareholder on Earth. When it cannot generate profit, it cannot fund the research, clinical trials, or regulatory lobbying that keep it on the shelf. When it cannot fund research and lobbying, it cannot stay on the shelf in your local pharmacy or your community health store. That is the pattern I want you to see clearly tonight, with your own eyes, by the time we reach the end of this video. Number 3 was in nearly every American medicine cabinet before the year 1970, next to the aspirin and the bandages. Number 11 is still legal and freely used in Germany and mainstream medicine today, but is heavily restricted here in the United States. Number 25 was in the root beer you drank as a child until the Food and Drug Administration quietly pulled it from the national supply chain. I am Dr. Lyanna, an emergency medicine physician with more than 15 years of direct hospital experience behind me. And what you are about to hear tonight was not taught in my medical school in any meaningful way that I can remember. It was buried there, between the lines of the textbook, in the footnotes that no medical student ever had the time to actually read. By the way, if you have made it this far into the video without clicking away, you already know something your neighbor almost certainly does not. That small fact matters more than you might think right now, at this particular moment, in American medicine and American health. This channel exists because thousands of people like you decided that silence from the pharmaceutical industry was not going to be the last word on their own health. If you agree with that position, the little red subscribe button below this video helps more than any comment ever will. Every new subscriber keeps this kind of information one click away from someone in their life who desperately needs to hear it. Anyway, number 1, Litriol, also known by the alternate name vitamin B17, or by its chemical name amygdalin in the scientific literature. It comes from apricot kernels, the bitter seed found inside the hard, woody apricot pit. Your grandmother may have crushed 3 kernels a day into her morning oatmeal or her first cup of warm milk. She did not know that it contained a compound that released cyanide selectively inside tumor cells and nowhere else in the body. She only knew that her neighbors who kept eating them seemed to live longer than the town expected them to, year after year. In 1977, the Food and Drug Administration made it a federal crime to sell Litriol across state lines anywhere in the United States. Dr. Ernst Krebs Jr., the biochemist who championed the compound for decades, was indicted by a federal grand jury. Desperate cancer patients flew to Mexico for treatment at the Oasis of Hope Hospital in the city of Tijuana. Some of those patients were arrested at the American border with apricot kernels hidden in their coat pockets and their suitcases. Mexico, Germany, and the Philippines still use Litriol in clinical practice today, inside major hospitals, under physician supervision. Let me pause here for a moment. Everything I have shown you so far in this list came from the year 1970 or earlier, in its original traditional unprocessed form. Every single remedy on this list of 25 was in completely open circulation during your grandmother's lifetime. Not one of them was restricted by federal agencies until the pharmaceutical industry had developed a patented alternative that they could sell in its place. That is not a conspiracy theory from the corners of the internet. That is the public record, documented in the Federal Register year by year. You can verify every name, every year, every ban, and every warning letter for yourself tonight, if you choose to do so. The Federal Register exists freely online for any citizen to read. The FDA warning letters are fully archived and searchable by anyone. Everything I am telling you in this video can be checked in under an hour on a free public computer at your local library. And that brings me to a question I want you to sit with for a moment before I continue down the list. If this information is fully publicly available right now, why did no one in your entire life ever actually tell you about it? Why did your family doctor not tell you? Why did your pharmacist not tell you? Why did your high school health teacher not tell you? The answer is not that they maliciously hid it from you, or that they were part of some coordinated plan to keep you ignorant. The answer is worse than that, in a quieter and more disturbing way. The answer is that it simply was not considered worth passing on anymore. If that bothers you the way it bothered me the first time I started digging into the archives, please share this video with one person in your family today. Not as a treatment recommendation for anything specific, as a record of what used to be common knowledge, so that at least one person after you in the next generation remembers what was lost along the way without anyone noticing. Continuing. Number 2, ephedra. also called ma huang in traditional Chinese herbalism, a Chinese herb that has been used medicinally for more than 5,000 years for asthma, bronchitis, and stubborn seasonal chest conditions. Your great-grandmother may have brewed it into a simple tea for her winter chest colds and her children's persistent coughs. In the year 2004, the Food and Drug Administration banned the herb outright, following a single high-profile death of a professional baseball player. It became the first dietary supplement in United States history to be fully and completely removed from store shelves by direct federal action. Pharmaceutical companies had already isolated the active compound from the plant decades earlier in a clean laboratory setting. They called the isolated synthetic form pseudoephedrine. They sold it in every pharmacy and every convenience store in America for literally billions of dollars in over-the-counter decongestants. One more thing, every single remedy on this list of 25 still exists somewhere on planet Earth, legally in the present day. Germany uses some of them in mainstream insurance-covered medicine. Mexico uses others openly. India has never stopped using any of the rest. The only thing that really changed in the last century is what you personally were allowed to know about them in this particular country. If that fact matters to you at all, the subscribe button below is the simplest possible vote you can cast for that knowledge to survive another generation. Continuing. Number 3, chaparral, Larea tridentata, the creosote bush of the American Southwest, growing wild across Arizona, New Mexico, and West Texas. Native American tribes used it medicinally for more than 400 years for skin conditions, respiratory infections, and joint inflammation. Studies conducted at the University of Utah during the 1970s showed strong antioxidant activity in the leaf of the plant. Today, the FDA warns against any internal use of the plant, after a small number of case reports that suggested possible liver concerns. The tea was quietly removed from store shelves across the entire country. The plant itself still grows freely across millions of acres of public land in the open desert. Number 4, comfrey, Symphytum officinale, the bone-knit herb of European folk medicine, named for its long traditional use on broken bones and torn soft tissue. Grandmothers applied the fresh green leaves to bruises, sprains, and broken skin for more than 1,000 years of recorded European history. Still fully legal for external use on unbroken skin in the United States, in homemade salves, infused oils, and traditional poultices. Internal use was formally restricted in 1993 after liver concerns were raised about certain alkaloids naturally present in the plant. Traditional European herbalists argue the risk was substantially overstated for short-term use with the common Russian variety of the plant. The plant itself remains untouched and unrestricted in every Old English cottage garden, exactly where it has grown for centuries without incident. Number 5, kava, Piper methysticum. Pacific Islanders drank it ceremonially for more than 3,000 years before any European traveler ever set foot in their remote islands. A root that brings genuine physical relaxation without alcohol, without a hangover the next morning, without any chemical dependency over time. In the year 2002, the FDA issued a formal consumer advisory warning against use in Americans with any pre-existing liver conditions. Germany briefly banned the herb outright at the national level. That ban was later overturned after the original evidence was carefully re-examined by an independent panel of scientists. The United States Consumer Advisory remains in place to this very day, more than 2 decades after it was first issued. Number 6, sassafras, Sassafras albidum, the native root that flavored American root beer for 2 full centuries of national history and childhood memory. Your grandfather may have dug it up fresh in the spring and made spring tonic tea for the entire family table on Sunday. Family tradition across the American South held that it thinned the blood for winter. It also gently cleansed the system after heavy holiday meals. In the year 1960, the FDA banned saffrole, the active oil compound found inside the sassafras root. Root beer companies across America switched to artificial flavoring almost overnight, without much public explanation of the reasons behind it. You can still find commercial sassafras tea today, with the saffrole chemically removed in the factory before bottling. What you cannot easily find anymore is the tea your great-grandmother actually drank out of her own front yard on a spring afternoon. Number 7, pennyroyal, Menthopelagium, a mint family herb used for headaches, digestive cramps, and women's monthly discomfort for many centuries of folk practice. Grandmothers brewed the dried leaf into weak, sipping teas, never the concentrated essential oil, which has always been understood to be dangerous. The FDA today discourages both the leaf and the essential oil, without much distinction between safe traditional forms and the concentrated modern extracts. Number 8, lobelia, Indian tobacco, used by Native Americans for respiratory support and later adopted by the Thompsonian medicine movement across 19th century America. Applied traditionally as a respiratory aid and as a help for smokers trying to break their physical dependency on tobacco, The FDA now classifies it as unsafe for self-use, though the plant still grows wild in every open field across the eastern states. Number 9. Wormwood. Artemisia absinthium. The bitter herb at the heart of absinthe, the green liquor that fueled the French artistic and literary scene for a full century. Banned outright in the United States back in the year 1912 after dramatic public claims of madness and heavy habitual drinkers. The ban was partially lifted in the year 2007. Most commercial absinthe sold today has the thujone compound mostly or entirely removed. The traditional full-strength preparation that Van Gogh and Toulouse-Lautrec actually drank is still not legally sold anywhere in its original authentic form. Number 10. Colloidal silver, used widely as a natural antibiotic in American households long before penicillin was ever discovered in a laboratory dish. Every American farmhouse kept a small glass bottle of it on the shelf for cuts, burns, pink eye, and mild upper respiratory infections. The FDA today prohibits any manufacturer from making any health claim about silver in its product, labeling, or its advertising. The substance itself remains completely legal to buy. The knowledge of how to use it properly and safely has been effectively erased from public health guidance. Number 11. Dimethyl sulfoxide, a topical solvent with a remarkable ability to carry dissolved medicine directly through the skin barrier and into the underlying tissue. Veterinarians use it every single day across the country on racehorses and show dogs. Human medical use is restricted to only a few specific federally approved conditions. Mothers in the 1960s and early 70s used it freely for their children's joint pain and sports injuries with great reported success. Studies at the Cleveland Clinic and at Oregon Health Sciences University had shown genuine promise across many conditions. That research was defunded before it could be completed to the satisfaction of the federal regulators. Number 12. Mercurochrome, the famous red liquid that sat in every American family medicine cabinet for 70 consecutive years of the 20th century. Applied to every scraped knee in this country from the year 1920 right up until the year 1998. The FDA removed its approved status in the late 90s over the mercury content in the formula, despite no documented harm from normal household use. Generations of scraped knees had healed without a single reported infection under that bright red tincture, and the mothers who used it knew exactly what they were doing. Number 13. Yohimbe. Posinistalia yohimbe. An African bark used traditionally as a male vitality tonic and circulation support for many centuries across West Africa. The FDA restricts it as a dietary supplement due to real cardiovascular concerns at concentrated or standardized doses. Isolated yohimbine hydrochloride remains available today, but only as a prescription drug filtered through the pharmaceutical system. Number 14. Thuja. Eastern white cedar. Native American tribes chewed the inner bark to prevent scurvy on long winter hunts. French explorers learned the practice directly from them and brought it home. Later in history, it became a staple in American homeopathic medicine for stubborn skin growths, warts, and certain fungal conditions. FDA warnings now attach to any internal use claim involving the plant, though the tree itself still stands ornamentally outside thousands of New England homes. Number 15. Belladonna. Atropa belladonna. At small, carefully controlled doses, it was used traditionally for muscle spasms, motion sickness, and stubborn, persistent fevers. Physicians in the 1920s routinely kept it in their standard black medical bag for emergency house calls. Today, any non-prescription preparation of the raw plant or its tincture is tightly restricted by federal regulation. The active compound, atropine, is still used in modern hospitals every single day, but only filtered through the pharmaceutical system at 10 times the price. Number 16. Pokeweed. Phytolacca americana. A traditional spring tonic across the entire American South for well over 2 centuries of continuous family practice. Young tender shoots were boiled repeatedly in several changes of water and eaten for what grandmothers called good old-fashioned blood cleansing. The FDA has issued repeated public warnings against any internal use of the plant. Folk herbalists in the Appalachian Mountains continue the exact preparation practice their grandmothers and great-grandmothers taught them as children. Number 17. Germander. Teucrium chamedris. A European bitter herb used traditionally for digestion, liver support, and weight management across many centuries of European apothecary practice. FDA restrictive action followed a cluster of liver injury reports coming out of France during the early 1990s. Traditional preparation in small, carefully timed amounts was historically considered safe across most of southern and central Europe. Number 18. Blue cohosh, Caulophyllum thalictroides, the midwife's herb of colonial America, used carefully to ease the final stages of childbirth in country homes without doctors. FDA advisories now warn sharply against use of the plant during pregnancy without specific professional supervision. Experienced traditional midwives argue that the old dose, the old timing, and the old preparation method mattered far more than the substance itself ever did. Number 19. Mandrake, American mayapple, Podophyllum peltotum. The root at the heart of New England folk medicine, used traditionally and carefully for chronic stubborn skin conditions. Isolated chemical compounds from this exact plant became the direct chemical basis for several modern chemotherapy drugs still in use today. The raw root is now fully restricted for any self-use. Your great-grandmother prepared it carefully each spring. You may no longer do the same legally. Number 20. Mistletoe. Viscum album. Injected mistletoe preparations, developed under the name Iscador, have been used in Germany for cancer support therapy since the year 1920. Thousands of European doctors prescribe it regularly for cancer patients today, and it is covered under the German national insurance system. In the United States, injectable mistletoe has never been approved by the FDA for any indication whatsoever. American patients with resources fly to Switzerland or Germany for exactly the kind of treatment their own ancestors could once have received locally. Number 21. Horny goatweed. Epimedium grandiflorum. Chinese traditional herbal medicine has used the plant for more than 2,000 years of documented continuous practice. Federal restrictions apply to specific forms and to any specific health claims made about the plant in American advertising. The plant itself grows easily in backyards across the country as a common ornamental ground cover. What you can legally say about the plant has shrunk dramatically over the last 3 decades of steadily tightening regulation. Number 22. Opium poppy. Papaver somniferum. Before the year 1914, any American farmer could legally grow the plant and brew the tea for severe, unrelenting pain. Your great-great-grandmother knew the exact safe dose for a dying relative, passed down through the women of the family. The Harrison Act of 1914 changed everything about the plant overnight. The Controlled Substances Act of 1970 sealed the door permanently. Number 23. Coca leaf tea, used in the Andes Mountains for more than 3,000 years, primarily for altitude sickness and for everyday digestion after heavy meals. Imported legally into the United States for use as a beverage ingredient up until the mid-1960s. Peruvian grandmothers still brew it fresh every single morning of their lives and serve it to guests in small, warm cups. Number 24. Raw milk, the default milk of human history, going back 10,000 years until pasteurization became the enforced American standard in 1924. Your great-grandmother drank it every day, churned it into butter by hand, and fed it to her children without a single moment of hesitation. Interstate commercial sale was banned by federal regulation in 1987. A handful of states still allow direct local farm sales. Most states do not. Europe sells genuine raw milk today in vending machines on the street, at dairy farms, and in supermarkets across the continent. Number 25. Clove cigarettes, Indonesian kretek. Smoked for centuries in Indonesia and across Southeast Asia for respiratory complaints and for folk ceremonial use. Banned in the United States in 2009 under the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act, passed by Congress. They continue to be sold freely and legally across most of Asia, most of Europe, and much of Latin America. Your grandfather may well have smoked them on his return from the Pacific theater of the Second World War. This knowledge did not disappear by accident or by the natural passage of time. It was actively suppressed, systematically ignored, and carefully regulated out of everyday public memory for decades at a time. But it lives. It lives in every video on this channel, in every secondhand book in a used bookstore, in every grandmother who still remembers her own mother's methods. If this video made any real difference in the way you look at your own medicine cabinet tonight, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear this knowledge. Every single share keeps alive what the industry quietly wanted forgotten over 3 generations of slow, careful silencing. The next video on this channel opens up a completely new chapter in this same investigation. 7 common backyard plants that country doctors routinely prescribed before the year 1960, and that are now completely missing from every pharmacy shelf in America. Subscribe to this channel so that you do not miss it when it comes out next week. This knowledge does not belong to the pharmaceutical industry. It belongs to you, and it belongs to the people who came before you and gave you your name. Subscribe to Green Vault so that no one forgets what was here before any of us arrived.